Name for me a hotter Hollywood pair right now, both literally and figuratively. Okay. Then Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox. I will patiently wait, sweetheart. I will wait. Okay. And then on top of that, imagine in the height of all of this sensationalism and attention that they're getting, working with them on a very cathartic project, a movie about all things, but almost like the downside and the nitty gritty of fame and life of the rich and famous. Well, if you have been thinking about all of these things, we got a treat for you today. Santa came early, okay, because I am with Tim Sutton. Tim is the writer and director of the new film, aforementioned, TAURUS, that stars Machine Gun Kelly. It has an awesome cast. Like I said, Megan Fox, Ruby Rose. So Tim, welcome to Cancel Me Baby. And your baby, this movie is coming out into the world.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I love the intro too. They're so in a fishbowl, and this movie puts them in a different fishbowl. It's a completely different bowl.
But is it though? Because that's what is so fascinating, I think. And by the way, I'm kind of channeling Megan today with this very risque cut out shirt. She's been my muse lately. So I'm just going for it. Balls to the wall, boobs to the wall, whatever you have it today.
I just saw her the other day at a screening, and she was wearing this matching, like this green sweatsuit that was just like bright Kelly green, and it was just amazing.
It's such a vibe. I feel like I used to, when I was, on red carpets in Hollywood, I dressed like your grandma's sofa was like the like literally. And now she really has, people are like, what's gotten into you? I love it. And I'm like, it's called Megan Fox, bitch. Like, look it up. But yes, I mean, how crazy of a moment for you, Tim, given that everyone is paying attention to them right now. And you happen to do this project at the pinnacle of their moment right now.
Yeah, it's peak MGK and Megan for sure.
Is that a little like trippy for you?
It's totally trippy. First of all, it's awesome because the movie is supposed to be about this damaged rock star who has everything he wants but wants nothing at all. And I mean, in a way, it's like it is Coulson's alter ego, And so when we were doing it, and I had written a part for the X, it was obvious. I wrote it for Megan, and they're very respectful of each other's process. So there are certain things she doesn't want to step on his toes, he doesn't want to step on her toes. Like they do a lot of things together, but they also have their separate identities. And it was really important that she came in on this project because it adds that ultra layer of meta that the movie really needed. And they're like the celebrity couple in the world, but at the same time, they're artists, and they show that they're artists in the movie, which is I'm as proud of anything about.
I'm excited to get into that with you. Now, before we do, people are, like you said, right? He plays this sort of self-destructive, almost empty, troubled rock star.
Yeah.
And people are, while it's a tale of fiction, people are going to watch this and draw their own conclusions going, how autobiographical is this? How much input did they have, right? So not that you can speak for him. Obviously, you wrote this film, but what would you say to that, to people who it's almost left up to interpretation, right?
Well, I love it. I think, yes, I can't speak for him, but I can say that we both love the gray area that the movie, kind of occupies. Mm-hmm. That there's a lot of fact in this movie as much as there is fiction. And the scenes that are more documentary feed the scenes that are more fiction, and vice versa. So you create this kind of this world where it's really fertile ground, but you don't know exactly what you're watching. I love shit like that.
Yeah.
And I think and Coulson, we wanted to make something really authentic, and you can do that with fiction, but it's always, what I love to do is mix that fiction with a real interview that's taking place, or a recording studio that's run by Coulson and his mate Slim, in the way that they would do it, not in a movie way, but in the way that they would actually do their work. So it becomes more authentic. And I think authenticity in this movie is what, I don't care what people take away as long as they get immersed in it. And I think it's hard not to.
Absolutely. And with that being said, because I imagine I've been on a lot of movie sets, a lot of big blockbuster movie sets, which I imagine is more, indie films like this I've interviewed so many directors and stars of indie films on my show, because I think you guys have so much more creative freedom and liberty, and it's just ripe for more of, a more of like of a playground of what you want to do. But with that being said, I've seen the dynamic between directors and actors, and it's a really special thing. So given everything that you just said, how did you kind of work hand in hand with him to bring out that dynamic and that authenticity of someone who's living this life, but perhaps it's not his exact life? Like, can you pinpoint, for example, something that he brought to the table that was like, Tim, this, like, maybe it's thematic, right? Like, this would be in real life. Like, let's add this because this is the shit that actually goes down or that I've experienced.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. Well, first, I do want to say, like, some actor and director relationships work best when they clash and they kind of beat on each other until there's, they both have a mutual respect. Colson and I don't have anything like that. We trusted each other. It's just kind of this weird, how you connect with certain people and you just have that connection, and it's there, and it's been there for thousands of years. It's kind of like that. We make an odd couple, but as artists, we know exactly what the other one wants. And and there's this kind of vibe that, we were just both hands on the wheel all the time. And it felt really good. And the process was completely smooth. Now, I also say that because it was smooth because he was so willing to open himself up to risk, to vulnerability. People are going to think, like we've talked about, like people are going to think Machine Gun Kelly's a drunk cokehead who like goes out in the middle of traffic and gets hit by cars. That's performance. You know what I mean? But he's willing to take that risk to have half the world think, oh, he's just a drunk. Oh, he's just playing himself. He's just playing himself. He's playing a version of himself in a bizarro, darker world, but he's also performing, and he's open. That's talent. That's acting talent. And you can't, as a director, you got to just hope that that's where your guy's going to go. And luckily for me, that's where he's going to go. But like things he brought. So the whip it, when he does whip it in the bathroom, like I had him doing bumps in the script. He's like, you know what? It's way more sad if I was doing a whip it. I was like, all right, great, do it. And so there are these little things, these little details that I would think like, that doesn't matter. But they totally do. It makes you so much sadder. It's just like, oh, bro, you're the world famous musician and you're doing a whip it in your bathroom. It makes your heart bleed for the guy. Things like that. But certainly the recording the music with Lil TJ, that recording session, that was my job was to get out of the way and let the musicians be the musicians. Right. You know what I mean?
Did you write this movie with him in mind?
Yes, absolutely. There's other things involved. Like, listen, I was 25 when Kurt Cobain died. It left a void in me that's still there. Like, I'm not going to say it all comes from Colson, but I had just worked with him. I knew that I wanted him to play the role. When I was writing it, you see him. But there's influences of the lives of like other people who lived a similar lifestyle, like Lil Peep or Juice WRLD, or these guys who are like, dead too soon. But I handed the script to one person. That's it. That was always. It was never going to be anything other than that.
So kind of diving into what you alluded to earlier with, in terms of these huge pop culture figures versus the person or the artist, shed some light on that for us, right? Like they are these provocateurs, constantly ruffling feathers and sending shockwaves. And yet here you are with them on set, getting to see the human, the artist, the person. What was that dichotomy? And give us a peek into that world, something that we wouldn't know, from the outside.
Sure. Well, like, I mean, you get little bonus things in your movie, like he was playing Lollapalooza, so we went and filmed it. You know, like that would have cost $5 million to recreate, and we got it for free. You know what I mean? Or the cost of a plane ride. So there's certain perks you have with this global superstar, and you can kind of tag along. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting to me is also their professionalism, because you see them, they own the internet. They completely own the internet. They run the show. They're on a whole other level. But what I'm really excited about the world to see is that they're both artists. Like Megan came to set for her 2 scenes, and she was a total pro. She went to the dressing room. There's no to do. She came with her own clothes. She asked to see me, and for the fight scene that's in the sound studio, and she said, "How long have they been broken up, and how long do you want the scene to be?" Those were the 2 questions she asked me. And then she just went in there and delivered 4 takes, like blew us all away. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if you watch her in those scenes, she has no lines in either of the scenes in the movie, but there's so much heart and soul and so much charisma coming from her that it just radiates the screen. I knew that could happen, but like, she's not even talking. She's not even Megan, like it's real. It's like their real relationship transferring before our eyes, the hard parts and also the loving parts.
Well, that's what was fun to watch, because it's that meta thing you're talking about, right? Of the blend of real and fiction and all that is really fun. And even hearing you talk about that, you know, it kind of reminds me of the Kim Kardashian effect. And I've met Kim and I've interviewed her, and like Megan and MGK, it's this thing where I think they get a bad rap for like being over sensationalized and putting themselves out there and being provocative, right? But on the other end of it, like in Kim's case, she's a businesswoman, and these guys' case, they're artists, they're actors. And in terms of, like you say, they're constantly breaking the internet and owning the internet. There's a part of me that gives them props, because it's like, is it smart business wise, right? Like, we're in the business of visual media.
Absolutely. MGK is a marketing genius, and so is Megan. And I mean that as an ultra compliment, because I think there are a lot of great artists or there are a lot of celebrities who are just doing the same kind of thing. They're leaders in that. Like the kind of the world follows their cues. And I think that's really, there's nothing crass about that. And some of it is strategic because they are business. And some of it is like their lives and their business are all kind of melded into the same existence. And I think it's probably really challenging lifestyle, but it doesn't interrupt. The celebrity doesn't interrupt the art. The music doesn't interrupt the fashion. Like they all work together. And that's what's really impressive to me about both of them, is they're on so many different fronts. They're kind of leaders.
Well, with that being said, where do you land on the idea of celebrities putting themselves out there, perpetuating being in the limelight? And not saying they do this. This is a theme I just explore on my show after being so immersed in Hollywood for years. And then on the other end of it, what this movie explores, which is the sad and, again, destructive side of always, quote, being on display. Right? Like I've had the controversial take and been like, listen, like, you know what business you're in, you know what you're getting yourself into. If you want to be under the radar, go pull a Harrison Ford, post up in a log cabin and like be on the down low. Right. Because I think it lands, in a weird way with people when it's like, oh, the limelight, but it's like, okay, but how active of a participant are you in that? So where do you fall in that debate? Because obviously this film does look at a very empathetic view of constantly being a famous person on display.
Yeah. I mean, I think it has to do with the person. Like, I know actors who like still have flip phones and do Zooms from closets who are at their friend's house, that they don't know, either they don't know how to manage it, or they don't want to, or they don't want any piece of it.
Right.
So it really depends. But like first of all, with Coulson, like, one of Coulson's goals was to kind of rule the world. Not everybody feels that way, but I think he really wanted to do that with music. I think he wants to eventually do that with movies. and I think he wants to do that, like his cafe in Cleveland with coffee. Like he wants, he did his nail polish brand. I mean, he has so many different ideas, and he wants to put them out there at 120 miles per hour and at 11 each time. He doesn't want to do anything small, and I think that's really exciting. At the same time, as an artist, he was willing to kind of go down this dark side that he could have been. Like, that's the thing, is like he did this movie because he didn't go this direction in life. He became the other version of it. But I think it was important for him to kind of see what that dark side would have been like through performance. But I do think, like, at heart, I know him as an artist. You know what I mean? And that's the Coulson that I know. Mm-hmm. The other stuff, it's impressive to me, but the artist is the most impressive. The musician, the person who sits at that keyboard and comes up with stuff that's just going to be a big hit. Like, I don't know how people do that, and he does it. And at the same time, you know, takes this kind of this small art film in a way and makes it something kind of bigger than it could have been without him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Now, lastly, that was so beautifully said, how you put it. You know, it could have been this path, but I went on this path, and the path displayed in this movie is unfortunately something that we see time and time again. I mean, look at, you know, the horrible death of Aaron Carter. That just literally, this is on the heels of that, right? And this is, you know, it's funny. I was recently reading a feature that Rolling Stone did on Eddie Van Halen, and I never knew this about him, but they talked about how he would numb himself before performances with substances and alcohol and this and that because of the immense pressure. Right. And, you know, again, this is unfortunately, you know, the tale as old as time. So I'm wondering for you, lastly, this is a twofold, but one, is it just that people have these issues and famous rock stars just happen to be ones who put this issue on display, or it's the lifestyle that helps create it and perpetuate it? I don't know if that makes that's my first question. And then my second question is, because this is a tale that is sort of sadly timeless, what about your movie gives it a different lens, a different you know, brings a different light to it? Right.
Well, I think the first question is tricky, but the first person who came to mind was actually Bono. Like, Bono was ruled the world. They had the biggest, U2 is the biggest rock and roll band in the world for a solid decade, probably. And they've been a successful band for 40 years. He seems pretty well adjusted to the fame and is able to, like, do so many different things on a high level, and never kind of went down that totally dark path. So I think it's the personality, not just the fame. Right. Because there's certain person, let's say like Amy Winehouse, who just like likes her drugs, but like once she started depending on them, couldn't control it because all the different recording and all her father putting pressure on her to keep doing performances, and then the fans, and then the trolls on the internet, everything. Just I think some people are sensitive. I mean, it's hard to have that thick skin and not. I get one negative DM and I'm like, oh my God, you know, think of getting thousands and thousands of them before you even wake up in the morning. Yep. So I think there's a certain personality that, like Kurt Cobain, who just wanted to make music and be a rock and roll singer, and then all of a sudden everything else that came with it was just brought on despair. So I think some people are emotionally prepared for it, and some people aren't. I think Coulson is an example of who's done both. I think he's spent a lot of time in his career, you know, in a world of substance and in a world of kind of darkness. And I think there's a darkness that is definitely natural to him, but he's able to kind of overcome that and see the bigger picture, which is, you know, being this rock and roll star can also affect a lot of people in a really positive way, and affect him in a positive way as well. The second part of the question, the movie doesn't have a message, so to speak, and I'm not really into movies with like very loud messages. I think the movie to me is about the creative process and all the things that get in the way of the creative process. The creative process is a really simple thing. It's something that everybody has. It's doing that one thing that you love to do. And then all the shit that gets in the way of that, whether that's the social media or money or drugs or the industry
Ourselves.
or fans or yourself. Yeah, exactly. All the things that can get in the way. This movie is about trying to break through all that and find your muse again and make that last song. Otherwise, I want people to be in the room. You know, I want people to be in the room with him. I want people to be sitting on that couch and be tempted by the same line of coke that he is. I want him to be in the room when he's making music with little TJ and feel the joy of making music. I want him to be at that executive lunch and be like, I don't want to be a brand ambassador. You know what I mean? I just want people to get an intimate sense of what it's like, because, you know, fame and fortune is probably really great in many ways, but we're all human beings, even the famous, and it takes its toll. And I think this movie shows that.
Well, I so appreciate it. And especially in a time right now where everyone wants to be famous and it's so perfect on social media. And so what you're shedding light on, that raw reality, right, is something that I know my listeners for sure appreciate. So Tim, thank you so much. I'm so stoked to have been a part of this. And, you know, I've been looking forward to it. And thanks for bringing, you know, the good, bad, and ugly and truth of rock and roll to our screens with, yes, not an overly preachy message, something that we at Cancel Me Baby also very much appreciate. Good. So
yeah, I figured. Well, thank you for having me. I love talking to you.
Likewise, best of luck with your baby. I'm so excited to see how it goes.
Thanks, man.